Well, not long after that, too, post-World War II, we have a guy named Edwards Demings. Does that ring a bell? Okay, maybe I'm talking about stuff you guys know more about than I do. Edwards Demings is a guy who, my understanding, okay, was really tried to bring his thoughts about total quality to the United States in businesses here. They wouldn't listen to him, but because of World War II and what happened in Japan and the whole country kind of being up for grabs, the Japanese were very interested, very open to it. He went to Japan, he applied everything there, and a lot of the, well, like when my dad was a kid, if he'd get something that said made in Japan on it, that meant it was cheap, right? But thanks to Edwards Demings, okay, now my dad, he will never ever buy any car except a Toyota Camry, because he took his total quality management theory there and they actually applied it and it changed their economy, right? We're going to stack all these things up here. So you got that happening. In addition to that, somewhere in there too, you got a guy named Ray Kroc here in Chicago who meets up with the McDonald's brothers. And not only do we have kind of like this, what business is now learning about business management, but now how do we actually reproduce this total quality experience, right? We got this one place, this one McDonald's brothers store. Does a great job with hamburgers and milkshakes. How do we actually reproduce and begin franchising? And Ray Kroc introduced that, really, was him to the world. You overlay all of that with all the technological advances that have happened in the last 100 years, right? With video, with internet, with distance learning, and on and on and on and on. Those are all, I think, external forces that were at work. Because I think parallel to a lot of those are internal forces happening in the church. Okay? Internal forces that were happening in the church. The church also, I'll try to parallel these up, entered into an age of modernity, which I think contributed a lot to evangelicalism. I mean, evangelicalism is known for anything. I mean, it's kind of known for, being really, the Bible is the Word of God, right? And I believe that. But because it's rooted probably or came out of an era of modernity where science was king, of course, proposition was going to be the ultimate truth, okay? The spoken or written word was going to be the ultimate truth and not necessarily experience, as, we hear from postmoderns. Are you tracking with me on this? Well, if we continue too, out of, I think, this idea that science is king came a guy named Donald McGavran who was a missionary. Ring a bell? Donald McGavran is a guy who was a missionary. He wrote a book called Understanding Church Growth, and when he wrote Understanding Church Growth, what it did is it launched the whole church growth movement. And in launching the whole church growth movement, it launched everything that happened out of Fuller. And with that church growth movement, basically they brought social sciences then to the church. And I'm old enough that I remember, going to seminars with Carl George and C. Peter Wagner, and maybe some of you remember some of those names as well. And so you have, in the business world, right, again, because of modernity, science is king, you have the science of modern management. Now all of a sudden, and it's probably 20 years later, you have the science or the social science of church growth. So the social science of church growth, which is kind of, and I would compare, it's fascinating to me, if you think about a Peter Drucker over here, right, in the business world, I'd say over here in the church world, you had Lyle Schaller. Very similar as far as career paths. Well, in the same way, look at Edwards Demings introduced total quality, right? Excellence. Along comes the Seeker Church movement. If you've ever been to Willow Creek back in the early days, I mean, the big aha for everybody was this emphasis on excellence, right? An emphasis on excellence. And I wouldn't be surprised if, if Hybels didn't have Deming's wheel of plan, do, check, act. Well, actually, I mean, that was. You ever seen Deming's wheel? Basically, it's a wheel. How are we doing on time here? All right, we're not doing good. Basically, it's a wheel like this, and this is kind of his. If you talk about TQM, this was Deming's whole thing: plan, do, check, act. Everything you do, you just take it through this process. You plan it, then you do it, then you check or evaluate, and then you take action to make it better. I mean, doesn't that sound like how Willow Creek does programming? Right? So then you have also, so now you have this excellence that's brought into the church too. Maybe about 20 years later after Deming's actually thought about it, but it's still the same kind of deal. Well, then you overlay all of that with technology and, right, video, right, internet, and distance learning. It's not surprising, I guess, at some level that somebody goes, oh, if we can do this really good at one location, why don't we, franchising, right? McDonald's can do it, why don't we do it really good at a lot of other different locations? And so I think all those kind of internal factors begin to work. And so it was kind of, I do believe with all my heart that's a God thing, but I think it was also kind of, well, the time was right. Are you tracking with me on that?